Welcome back to the Dr. Mary Travelbest Guide Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And this is part 1 of 2. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Eastern Canada, we're going to start out right here saying it's understated. This episode is about what I actually did there in August 2025 as a solo woman traveler. Halifax surprised me. It's a harbor city, a university city, a military city, a cruise ship city, and a place where history seems to rise from the water. One of the first things I noticed is that Halifax is surrounded by water. The harbor is not just scenery, it's part of the ships and the ferries and the kayaks. I mean, this is the city's identity. There's cruise passengers everywhere. There's Navy vessels. There's waterfront walkers. And they've all got the same sense of place. So I did a lot of walking. I spent a lot of time on the waterfront. There was music. There was people eating. There was a lively summer feeling. I was there around August 4th, which was a holiday, and I ate poutine at the buskers event. Poutine was new to me. It is French fries with cheese curds and gravy topped with ketchup. It was a different flavor for me. And that's part of travel, trying something even when you're not sure it will become your favorite. Halifax has a strong maritime history, and I visited the Maritime Museum. This is one of the highlights. I learned more about the Halifax explosion of December 6th, 1917, when 2 ships collided in the harbor. The explosion was enormous, often described as the world's largest pre-atomic explosion. I heard that the anchor landed miles away. The water was displaced and a tsunami followed. The next day, there was a blizzard. That story stayed with me because it showed how much tragedy this city has survived. The Maritime Museum also connects you to other parts of Halifax history, including shipyards, dockyards, and the city's role as a port. So if you're a first-time visitor, this is a good place to start because it helps you understand why Halifax matters. I want to talk about the Immigration Museum. You can look up your family history here, including whether you have U.S. relatives. Mine had a 15-minute wait, but it was a free service. We'll talk about that more in part 2 of Halifax. I also visited the Citadel, which was up on the hill. I spent about 2 hours there learning about the military and cultural changes in the area. It was informative, and I'm glad I made the climb. Halifax has hills, so wear good walking shoes. You may think you're just going up the hill to the museum, but your legs will know you are in a real city with elevation. Another special experience was my kayak tour around St. George's Island. It was a 2.5-hour tour, and we learned about tunnels and armaments from the time when the British were responsible for the harbor's defense and security. It was a little bit expensive, but I was really glad I did it. Sometimes a higher cost experience is worth it because it gives you a memory you would not get any other way. I also made time for beauty and quiet. I took bus number 1 to the public gardens, and they were beautiful. The main gate is near the South Park Street and Spring Garden Road. That area is a good part of the city to explore. I wandered, took buses, and let myself explore different parts of Halifax rather than staying just in one tourist area. One morning, I went swimming in the Centennial Pool about 8:30 in the morning. The water was chilly, but not freezing, and I swam for about 45 minutes and felt fantastic. I love finding ordinary things in a new city, a public pool, a bus route, a grocery store, a coffee shop, because those places help me feel less like a tourist and more like a temporary resident. I noticed Tim Hortons everywhere. Strong coffee, bathrooms, and big business. For a traveler, especially one moving around by bus, knowing where you can get coffee and find a bathroom matters. I rode public buses and appreciated that they announced the next street before arriving. That was helpful when I was trying to figure out where I was going. At one point, I jumped on a 10C bus, not completely sure where it was going, but I was on South Park Street and Spring Garden Road and seeing more of Halifax. That's one of my travel styles. I like to wander, but I also pay attention. I passed St. Mary's University, Dalhousie University, Gorsebrook Park on Inglis Street, and other neighborhoods. And Halifax has a strong student presence, which gives part of the city energy. Quinpool Road felt like a main drag for shopping. I also hopped on the bus that took me to the Micmac Mall. I went to the art gallery, where Maud Lewis's paintings are an important draw. And I saw Point Pleasant Park, one of my favorite parts of the city, especially around Yonge Avenue. Halifax has one gated street with 6 houses on the ocean, and that area felt peaceful and special. Point Pleasant Park also carries reminders of storms and resilience. I heard about a hurricane in 2010 that downed a huge number of trees. Nature is beautiful here, but also powerful. So I mentioned visiting downtown Halifax. I visited St. Paul's Anglican Church, the city's oldest building, dating back to 1749. It's close to downtown and gives you a sense of how old Halifax is by North American standards. A few small details stayed with me. Some red traffic lights in Nova Scotia were square in shape. The city has a commons area for winter skating at the Emera Oval. There's an armory, the Scotia Bank Center for events, cruise ships at the harbor, Irving gas stations, and a beautiful waterfront at night. I even heard about Theodore the tugboat, and that brought a lighter, cheerful side to the harbor. My food experiences included fish and chips, scallops, clams, poutine, as I mentioned, and outdoor eating. I remember Olive and Rudy, scallops and clams, and the pleasure of eating outside when the weather is just right. Halifax is a good place for seafood and simple travel meals. One day, I had a ham sandwich, an apple, a pear, an orange, and toast. That helped me manage costs while spending money on experiences. My caution for listeners. Someone mentioned the Dome neighborhood as a place with many bars and a possible recipe for a bar fight. I would say this more gently. As a solo traveler, especially at night, be aware of nightlife districts. You do not have to avoid fun, but you do need to know your surroundings. The show note includes a link to crime mapping in Halifax. My biggest mistake in Halifax was that I thought it was just going to be a small waterfront stop. It was much more layered than that. It was a beautiful Canadian harbor, a city of resilience, history, students. It had seafood, public places, and water views. And next up, we're going to talk part 2 on Halifax. But before we do, I'm going to tell you a couple of my travel mistakes, okay? So I assumed Halifax was just going to be a tiny place, and I'd only really want to stay there one day. It was a week, and I loved it. So when you do get there, make sure you try all the things. Go on a ferry, take the harbor cruise, or maybe your own kayak tour. When in Halifax, try it all. Listen for part 2 coming up next.
What's on your travel bucket list? Tell the doctor and her team of women who travel the world seeking the very best. Dr. Travelbest, that is.